Welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, a podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature professional Scrum trainers and other Scrum practitioners sharing their stories and experiences to help learn from the experience of others. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Scrum.org Community Podcast, podcast from the home of Scrum. In this podcast, we feature all sorts of interesting people, including professional Scrum trainers, Scrum practitioners, and organizations that are on this journey to professional Scrum and agility. We hope you enjoy this episode. I'm your host, Dave West, CEO here at Scrum.org. And today on the Scrum.org Community Podcast, I'm here with Michelle Seyo and William van der Koppert from Lightyear. This is actually the second podcast around this topic, which is really, really exciting. The first podcast concentrated really on an overview of their journey, Lightyear's journey. If you've not listened to that, please do. Spoiler alert, Lightyear is a solar paneled car. Yes, that cool. Lightyear's first product is sort of in the process of hitting the streets at the moment. And they've just come back from an amazing consumer electronics show in Las Vegas, where my Twitter feed was full of people saying lovely things about them. So, you know, it just proves that agility, engineering can work brilliantly together and deliver amazing products. But today's podcast is very much focused on some of the questions we didn't really get to in that initial podcast. So we're going to be talking around the challenges of Scrum, Agile with engineering, and particularly engineering of one of the most complex products in the world, cars, right? Automobiles. So welcome today, Willem, Michelle, to part 2 of the podcast.
Having us again.
Yep.
It's awesome. I'm very excited. I'm a little bit, as we talked about earlier, a little bit geeky about this stuff. So this is a present for the new year, as it were, to have this opportunity to talk to you both. So let's just jump in. We don't need to talk about any of the context setting. Let's just get in. Let's talk about the biggest question that I get posed when talking about the use of agility with many auto manufacturers. And as you well know, I spend a lot of time with them. And that is around this sort of like, how do you partition the work? How do you manage the dependencies? How do you keep teams focused? How do you get everybody not to overlap and get into meeting hell? Because it takes a lot of people to design, build, and manufacture a motor vehicle. So talk a little bit, I don't know, Willem, if you want to start on this, on your journey to where you are now with looking at this and the disciplines of building a motor vehicle.
Yeah, it was a journey, Dave, because it took us already. I think we are now 5-6 years along the way before the first customer is getting his keys in a couple of weeks. And the first car is actually being produced already and is currently is on the road trip through the US. So it's CES. It was there, the first #1 car. And the customer is in due course getting the key. So it's really, really exciting in that sense. But yeah, we learned a lot. We had a challenging last couple of years, because the last 3 years we did the last bits of the development. And 3-4 years ago, we set up those teams and we started building those teams. But also the car and how we developed it, we started indeed from system engineering point of view. So in the system engineering systems thinking, we set up and we broke down the vehicle, the product actually in multiple systems, where we didn't go with the current automotive way, so to say, the conventional one. We split it up in systems that are for Lightyear feasible to build. So an energy data platform, we had a client experience platform, and we had a driving experience platform. So we split them in 3 big micro blocks. And from there on, we started thinking, okay, how does the car then work? Because everything client experience is around the exterior, the interior. And then we start focusing cross-functional teams on that and start working on it and then start building the teams. start hiring experts from the market. Also very difficult in these times because all the experts are pulled into the huge explosion of startups in the world. Last year I heard more than 700 plus startup vehicle companies, so OEMs in that sense, and they're also pulling a lot on those experts clearly. We have found quite some interesting A players, as we call them, and set them into the system teams, and they are starting to build firstly requirements, but also starting just to test based on what we showed. I think we talked about it last time as well, and with wood and crates of beer and duct tape, making sure that we have this car in place, how it should feel, the ergonomics, how big would it be, and from there on starting to make CAD models, so in virtual reality, doing some 3D printing on small scales, they're building it up, virtual reality glasses, making sure they can test fast and adapt, and yeah, I think that were the biggest steps that we were taking. We organized ourselves based on those systems, but the people were always allocated in knowledge teams, as we call them, domains.
Oh.
So electrical engineers were in the domain of electronics. CAD engineers were in the CAD domain, and those pools were growing. So they were monodisciplinary, and then they were deployed into the project, into the systems, and they're multidisciplinary, cross-functional.
Okay, so you sort of had this, it's almost a bit like the Spotify model, just to use it, where you've got these chapters and guilds, as it were, which are the mechanical, electrical, CAD, CAM, etc., where they draw on expertise, where they do professional development, where they sit down and go, oh my God, I had this problem. Have you seen that before? But then they may be as an individual on a team, in a systems team, that's actually delivering that subsystem that is a combination of those skills. Is that pretty much how you organized?
Yeah, exactly. So for example, the propulsion team that delivers the motor and the propulsion of the vehicle, they develop the product of the motors in there, the controllers and then the software and everything around. So they are cross-functional and delivering the product in the end. But they're only delivering the product for Lightyear 0. That team is nothing to do with anything, because also launched this year as a Lightyear 2. That team is not in there. So we'll deconstruct that team and we'll build it up again. Currently, that's for the Lightyear 2 in that sense.
Oh, so they're very focused on this particular, their product goal, to use, Michelle, some Scrum type terminology, as the agile coach in this podcast. Their product goal was very much focused on Lightyear 0, that first product, as it were. How big were the teams, William, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, so the teams, I think 3 years ago we were with 100 engineers. Currently we are 350. So with 350 in total now, we as engineers, then we developed finally the Lightyear 0 into the production. Part of that are split into teams of propulsion was like 50 or 60 people. We have body and chassis, interior, so it's in big chunks, and then they were split up in smaller teams to work together. So that was brought down to like 10, 15 max in sub-teams.
Okay, cool. I want to come back to that in a bit more detail, but I'd love, Michelle, your perspective. You're an agile coach. You're not as into cars as Willem and me, though you've become quite into it. How did you sort of dropped into this bunch of very technical, very geeky? What's your perspective of the teaming and the sort of dependencies initially? And then we'll talk obviously about the future and as you grew, but I'd love to get your perspective here.
Well, I mean, initially indeed it's all about the people, it's all about the teams and the people, and they're all individuals. And what I saw was that because Lightyear's got such a clear mission, and this idea of the Lightyear 0 was so crisp and clear, and everybody knew exactly what they needed to do, that alignment came quite naturally. So that was really nice to see, and I think that is one of the things that really connected those teams. And you could also see that there were teams for software and hardware that had the same objectives. So, for example, the exterior team were hardware exterior, but there was also a software exterior team, and they were talking. They were talking together a lot. The same goes for TMS, so thermal management system, because this is so important within Lightyear. This is really from Lightyear itself. There's a lot of the team has actually combined software and hardware into one bigger team for TMS because it's so crucial. So the teams themselves, the systems themselves, they looked at, okay, what are the skills, what's the expertise that we need actually to be able to release this system or these functions within the system. And they were able to manage that across themselves and with each other. And that I saw was you could see real kind of, like a kumbaya kind of feeling, when you enter a company and you're like, yeah, we're all going for that one goal. It was almost the feeling like putting a man on the moon or something, that kind of feeling you had. It was cool.
Well, I mean, it is building a new car with new technology in a completely different way that serves it is like putting somebody on the moon. In fact, some would argue this is more than that, because we've been to the moon. This is brand new, and it's much harder than rocket science. So just want to drill a little bit of that, Michelle, and then I want to come back to some questions, Willem, that came out of what you described. So how often did you talked about hardware and software being separate in this particular, the exterior team, as it were, in this particular example, the software to move, mirrors and all that kind of stuff, I assume, and do all that kind of interesting stuff. So how often did the teams look at dependencies, realign? Did you have a consistent one increment that brought them together? Or was it that they had separate increments, but they just communicated a lot?
Oh, on a daily basis. It depends on the teams, obviously, depending on how many dependencies there are and what the impact would be if they wouldn't be aligned for a bit. And also with regards to the milestones coming up. So if we would have an increment or we would have a planning, which we would do as a whole company, which was also one of the things that we introduced, having a planning as a whole company towards very clear objectives, very clear goals for that quarter, that made that there was alignment on the plan, on the goals, and on when it was going to integrate. And that's very, very important on that moment. But throughout the sprints and throughout the days as well, they had daily alignments, especially for, in this case, exterior. And if you have the teams within your own, if you have the multidisciplinarity in your own team, then of course, it could be that you use separate items within Jira or a separate view, because it's just easier, because one uses a different flow to another one and needs different tests, but they would still communicate on a daily basis and resolve their impediments on a daily basis.
And you would you'd basically integrate frequently, whatever that meant, depending on the work that you would do.
Yes, I think that is one of the biggest learnings that we learned pretty quickly, because we had it was quite funny that there was all of a sudden this marketing event popping up. This was before marketing was actually in the Lightyear Zero project, so to say. They weren't actually involved, like inside of it, which was one of the learnings that we picked up later. But there, all of a sudden there was like, oh, there's this marketing event and we need a certain DV, and it was like, oh no, and it had to be expedited because we definitely couldn't miss that moment, that opportunity. And then, you could see some frustration. You could see people were not very happy about that. The plan had to shift. But that was I think the best thing that happened to us, because all of a sudden, everybody needed to work together towards that milestone and towards integrating and towards testing and getting everything ready for this marketing event. And I think that really, I mean, a lot of work was done, and I don't think that people look back on that, how it went, in a really nice way. But what actually came out of it, you should have seen how proud everybody was. It was amazing. I think people would still get goosebumps, working towards that milestone. That was a real big improvement, also in maturity, on agility, and in collaboration. That helped us a lot.
Awesome. So, all right, so we've got these cross-functional teams aligned to the ultimate systems that Lightyear has decided comprise this vehicle. We've got these bigger teams which then break down into sub-teams. We integrate frequently. You incrementally release version 0. I find it hard saying version 0, but yeah, the first release of the product. You have like catalysts, like this marketing event, which hopefully go a little bit better than the Tesla. I'm reminded of the Tesla one with the Cybertruck when Elon Musk broke the windscreen because maybe marketing wasn't quite as involved. They wrote the demo and it didn't clear it with the engineers probably, but it certainly got in press, right? Which is, in the end of the day, what it's all about, I guess. So you've got these catalysts that make you realign, look at the organization, look at dependencies, look at, oh my God, maybe we can work a bit better. It sort of like brings everybody together and gives them a sort of kumbaya moment. So what happens next as you start bringing more and more engineers in? Now we've gone from 100 or so to 350. Does this still work? Do you have, is the product that I'm going to buy, hopefully in 2 years, going to be built the same way? How does it work next? Well, what happens next?
Happens next. To say so the growth, maybe to make it one step back. So the triple or quadruple growth that we went through. We also were building an organization next to it. So we're also building the agility in there, how we would work the teams, how we should communicate if the teams got to get bigger and bigger. And the next challenge, the Lightyear 2, that we already launched, or at least presented partially, that team will even be bigger. So I think that the team would grow to 500-600 people in the end, including external partners that will help us develop it, where the car will be cut up in 40 pieces in systems there. And then the cross-functional teams, it seems that the issue that we start running in is starting to be cramped, so to say. It's not flexible enough anymore. And then we're trying to reach, you mentioned before, if you look to other companies, how did they do it? How can we learn from others? How could we combine bits and pieces to make it into the Lightyear flavor? We want to move into more to have the work bring to the people. So our software teams is now software teams is already being arranged. That like you mentioned, Spotify as the guilds and the chapters and how they are set up. We also trying to see if we can implement more the extreme manufacturing. If you see hardware and agility in that sense, how could we bring that into more speed? Faster delivery, faster prototyping, and learning faster in that sense. So we're bringing more the teams in expertise centers and having those teams being responsible for the full product or parts of the product or bits and pieces or other developments as well, that we can start building knowledge in a bigger, broader way, but also develop faster. If we can develop faster, we can bring the car maybe even faster to market. Let's hope. At least the current planning is already challenging, but we will be able to manage this. But with the growth, you also need to train people and bring them on board. So if the crew, the teams is already stable, and you can add small bits and pieces people to it, then the stable team can grow even faster and more. Organic in that sense.
So just a word a bit about that, about skills, because this is a universal problem. Obviously, it's it's probably more extreme in the domain that you're in because of the complexity of the product that you're building. I mean, the beauty of the product you're building is in some levels you're keeping that complexity managed, but if you're a bank or a pharmaceutical or whatever, you've got these, skills versus how do you keep are the guilds or chapters or the disciplines like electrical, etc., are they responsible for ensuring the capabilities of the people that come into the teams, the skills of the people? Is that their responsibility, or is it responsibility of the teams to actually train up and to empower, or is it a bit both? Tell me a little bit about onboarding new people as you grow.
It's joint effort. So we have the domain experts, or the subject matter experts, as you call them in the market.
Yeah,
they are responsible for the specific knowledge, the depth of the knowledge, and they are also being responsible together with the teams to hire the new people together. So they are both inside the interviewing sequence in order to see, okay, do we attract the right skills and experience into the team that's needed. So that's part of the recruitment phase, so to say. So, and also the phase how to select the right persons, the A players, or the right person in the right spot in the right teams. That's been, it's a joint effort. At the point that the person that arrives, we do kickstart meetings. So we in the first week we'll have a lot of onboarding efforts from our onboarding team from HR, but also inside the teams we'll have buddies in order to manage that they are on the right spot, they have the right tool and equipment to start up. And the last year, and we were still developing this one, because the last year, finally with the sudden growth, our buddies ran out because the buddy was already three months in, and then a new person should start, and that's also a learning phase we went through. And then we try to digitalize that at least, so we can do more e-learning, that all the teams have their own e-learning paths that they can the new people can follow. You have this general one, and you go on an electrical one, then you go into the teams one that you can start exploring the first couple of weeks already, maximize the amount of knowledge that you can grasp from Lightyear before you can start, in order to get them a warm start, the persons to when they come in. But they also then will be joined into these domains, that they also being pulled into the domain meetings, that they can use the domains of electrical inside the electrical team, and vice versa.
Wow. It sounds awesome. In my career, I've always wished that I had both somebody that cared about the things that I'm passionate about, which for me was software engineering, and it turns out cars now increasingly, but that's a different thing. And then somebody that was helping me make sure I was adding value to the team, etc. And historically it's always been one person, so it's great to see those two things coming. And yes, I suppose it's been popularized by things like Spotify and the Spotify model, but it's really, really cool. So Michelle, talk a little bit about agile coaches.
One thing to add, maybe sorry, Dave, to interrupt.
No, Willem, I appreciate
it. So we talked about the teams and the domains and knowledge, but we also added another flavor in there, that's like the people manager, so the group lead, as we call it. That's still a person there that maintains the one-on-ones and the bilaterals with the persons, make sure that they do the personal development, what they want to do, if they want to learn something else or they want to move to a different team. So that's the third layer, the dimension in that way we are at. So that holds people first, that mentality that we have, at least one of our values, to keep that strong in place.
I think that's something that's I can't say unique, because I've not been to every single automotive organization, or certainly next generation automotive organization, or 600 of them or whatever is in the world at the moment. But one thing that I think that Lightyear is doing really well is that you want to build a humane environment to build amazing products that change the world, meaning that you care very deeply about the people that are part of this team, giving them audacious goals, yes, challenging goals, incredible, but you also care about them, and you built a support that cares about well-being, I suppose, for want of a better name for it, whether that's career progression, whether that's how happy people are, whether there's things that are challenging in their personal life that gets in the way of their professional development and their contribution, whether, having that HR or people side is something that I haven't seen so much. I see, yes, there's a HR department, but they just don't want to get their responsibilities just not to get sued, really, with wrongful dismissal, etc. And it's really nice to see that you've got these 3 sort of like homes for any human being that works at IAM. So that's really, 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 really good. I was going to ask, so thank you for bringing that up, because even though it's on my list, I forgot to mention it, which is embarrassing. I want to talk a little bit about the role of agile and agile coaches in this organization. So Michelle, you were part of that group. Talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, so I think with regards to the agile coaching at Lightyear, it was really interesting when I just joined. I noticed that the company was actually already agile, and then I noticed that I needed just to coach on the structure. But when I was there wasn't there wasn't really an agile coach. There were more Scrum Masters, and they were all they had their own, just their own way of working, which is great, but I always like to make a lot of impact. So basically we organized, I told Willem, I said, Willem, look, we've got 3 goals. Is that okay with you? We're going for alignment, autonomy, and Lightyear values. And obviously those put people first, what we just talked about, that's one of the 5 Lightyear values. And alignment, we just get across the goals, across all the teams, and get more autonomous teams. So autonomy there as well, taking into account the alignment on the goals, which are our number 1 priority. And it was already all there. All I needed to do was just tell all the Scrum Masters, these are the 3 goals, work on them. And then we had our community of practice, we had our roadmap set out, and we basically made sure that within each system there was at least a Scrum Master, if not a dedicated one, then one Scrum Master who does multiple systems. And that really worked, because they were able to bring the systems to a kind of maturity state in which they were able to do their own improvement, and they had a way of working that worked for them. And that's the funny thing when Willem talks about organic teams and it flowing and maturing organically as well. You could see that the more relaxed the teams were with each other or within the team, and the more mature they were, they could also say, look, we've grown too big, this is not working, we want to split. And they take ownership of that themselves. And it was really great seeing that. You could really see, and it helps to have then a Scrum Master for the same team. So there is still a kind of interface with the teams, and the learnings are still learned, and they talk still to the same people. So those kind of things we used. Or also, if there was a system that wasn't doing great at a certain thing, but there was a different system which was really great, then we made also sure that they had the same Scrum Master, for example, or the product owner would switch or something like that, for a session or for one of the events. And it was really nice to see how it grew. And basically with the limited Scrum Masters, we were able to serve quite a numerous amount of teams, to be fair. I'm not sure about the figures exactly, but I think definitely with I don't think we had really any real agile coaches. It was more the Scrum Masters who took on the role as an agile coach and as a team coach as well. So we worked on that.
Oh, that's awesome. I think that was a little dig on them, by the way. More Scrum Masters. I get it. But I think it's I love those 3 things. I think having that clarity of the accountabilities of the Scrum Masters and the bringing those together really helped to do many of the things that Willem talked about in terms of organic growth, clear sort of like deliveries, the three different responsibilities that help a human being. I think that just makes everything sort of fit together.
Yeah, I think the main basically the main accountability for the Scrum Master is the team effectivity. And if you want to do that via training or coaching or mentoring, you need all those skills. You need to have all those stances. You need to be able to be a coach as well. So when you talk to me about agile coaching, I really like the teams as well as part of that, and that is the domain of a Scrum Master. And we just focused on getting as much in their toolbox as possible. So not only Scrum, but also team coaching, also team maturity assessments, management 3.0, delegation poker, everything that they might need. And we did that with intervision and knowledge sharing. So we had a lot of that because we just need to build up the skills. And if in your toolbox there's only a hammer, you'll think everything's a nail. So I always think fill up your toolbox and you'll be able to handle any team. And it really works.
That's awesome. Thanks for that, Michelle. And we're coming to the end of today. It seems like we've only been speaking for a minute, but we've been speaking. We try to keep these podcasts relatively short. I thank you so much, both of you, for spending the time today. I could carry on this conversation. I guess if anybody's listened to this in the sort of automotive manufacturing, complex manufacturing base, if there's anything that you would leave them with, either of you, that might be really interesting. What would be the sort of like the parting words? I don't put you on the spot, but Willem, what do you think?
What do you think? So, interesting question. I think what we envision and what we do is, so we try to create the most efficient car. But we started from scrap, from nothing, and we just started to create a group of people that are joined together, that are at least that they can find each other, and to get the human in the resources. So that's what we were mentioning before. If we can get that, people can be in their role, that they can like and be happy, and work. How you say? If a person does what he likes to do, he can deliver more. I think that's for me the essence of being being a leader in this kind of group. If people are in the right spot, they can deliver what they like to do, and also and that fits together for the cause of the company.
I love that. I love that message, because it's all about the people, right? Solving the most complex problems in the world isn't about the problems, isn't about actually the technology. It's about the people, bringing them together, providing an environment where they thrive, giving them clear direction. All the things that you've done at Lightyear, which is delivering amazing, world-changing technology every day. And that's, I feel blessed to have met you and spend time with both of you about this. So thank you for that. Michelle, you've got something to add, I'm sure.
I mean, I would just want to leave it at it's all down to the people. But of course, I have something as well to add. Yeah, I think the two things which made that was very successful at Lightyear is, one thing is have a very clear goal. Exactly what Willem said, efficient car, the amount of kilometers to one charge. That was the kind of clear goal, and everybody knew exactly what that was. That was number one. And yeah, I think the other one is in an engineering company, you can often over-engineer, which might, stagnate the company and not help and freeze. And get one of those marketing guys to come up with a marketing event to expedite things. That really helped a lot in terms of not wanting to over-engineer, but really going for an MVP. So that would those be my two tips. But yeah, I like the one Willem said. It's all about the people.
Thank you for that. And imagine having an engineer say it's all about the people. That's just, it's like the world has stopped. Hell has frozen over. It's brilliant. It's brilliant to hear that. And thank you so much for spending the time. I'm really excited to watch you guys and what's going to be happening. For our listeners, I just recommend that you take the time and go and look up Lightyear and what they're doing, because that's really interesting. And you will see the value of the people that are delivering this amazing technology every day. And you'll see those as you subscribe to their blog and then see the evolution, and maybe at some point buy one of their amazing cars. So thank you once again. I'm sure that we'll probably in the future, I'd love to drop in and hear how it's going. So let's make sure we do that. And I'm sure our listeners will as well. So thank you, everybody. So just to remind everybody, this is the Scrum.org community podcast. Dave West, I'm here with Michelle and Wilhelm talking about Lightyear and their amazing journey and how agility helped. Thanks, everybody.